In the depths of the roaring 20s, a quiet coastal town clings to the edge of the Massachusetts coast, shrouded in ominous tales and whispered rumours. Welcome to Innsmouth, a place veiled in shadows and secrets, where the line between sanity and madness is as fragile as the crumbling cliffs that overlook the churning sea. Once a bustling fishing community, Innsmouth languishes in decay, its dilapidated buildings bearing witness to the passage of time and the eerie transformation that has taken hold. But behind the worn facades, the ever-present fog, a darker truth lurks, a truth that defies human comprehension and threatens to unleash unspeakable horrors upon an unsuspecting world. This is 1928, Fall of Innsmouth, a campaign of psychological and eldritch horror using the Call of Cthulhu 7th edition rules by Chaosium, and based on the stories of H.P. Lovecraft. The Call of Cthulhu role-playing game is written by Sandy Peterson with later revisions by Lynn Willis. The 7th edition is a collaboration between Paul Fricker and Mike Mason. Music used in this podcast is by Vivek Abhishek, Kevin MacLeod, and Ghoulish Grin Films. Connie changes who she is quite a lot. She's been a psychic, a saleswoman, a thief, but one of the few constants in her life has always been her mother. No matter who she is or what grift she's immersed herself into, she always takes the time to write her mother. Birthdays and Christmases are never something that simply pass by. Her mother is probably the only person who knows the real Connie, the woman herself and not the construct. Connie's mother has something special planned this year. She's turning 60. It's a big deal. She's got a huge spread planned, a celebration of a life shared by mother and daughter. She spends all weekend toiling on the cake, the one she'll share with Connie, and a proper homemade roast dinner, a luxury growing increasingly rare in the floundering economy. But Connie doesn't show up. A card doesn't even arrive in the mail. It's several weeks before she finds out her daughter's even alive. Connie simply forgot. Connie took the back-to-nature home action, recovering for sanity as she retires from civilization and attempts to process everything she's been through. She spends most of her time rationalizing what happened. It's just people in costumes, it's just a grift. Ruth was injured. She's just in the hospital. She's okay. It's easy enough for Mr. Boothby to cover up. There are few enough people in Falcon Point that his son's faux pas is unlikely to make the papers, but he still isn't happy that he has to go through the hassle. Normally, he would demand that Boothby take care of it himself, maybe send some flowers and a hamper to the post lady to smooth things over, arrange to pay the general store owner as a peace offering, etc. But Boothby's been hard to get a hold of lately. He's spending all of his time in his study, poring over that scrappy old book he brought back from Falcon Point. He's missed several meetings at the Arkham outlet, and this year's spring fashions will be delivered a month late as a result. Boothby Sr. passively-aggressively remarks that this is why he put Kenneth's younger brother in charge of their Boston and New York stores. He'd best get his nose out of that diary and either get to writing about leggy dames again, start taking the family business seriously. Boothby spends weeks immersing himself in Snowden's diary. Somehow the man has compiled the majority of his life within these pages, chronicling his first day of priest's college to just before his death. Most of it contains nothing more than unhinged ranting and mundane observations, but there's a bit that stands out. As Boothby reads it, a chill runs down his spine. The prophet's face was flawed, yet his words were perfect. Dagon, 2:11. I reflect upon this wisdom that it may serve me in the trials to come. I have plumbed the depths of the oceans for visions of a likely future, have bathed deep in Lord Dagon's everlasting love, and he has granted me glimpses of what shall come. 2 family men, one a son, the other a father, a lady charlatan, a killer, a false lord, and a changeling. At my hands 2 will fall, and I will have done my part. I pray only that Lord Dagon deems me worth witnessing the final outcome with my own eyes. As each day passes, my commitment to my mission grows stronger. Every day I witness for myself the bigotry of humanity. We are all equal in Lord Dagon's eyes, and yet they squirm like scared animals, instinctually reviling that which is different. The children of Dagon live here, and yet division festers even now. The people of this town retreat within themselves and scurry and hide. They give lip service to the order, yet cower behind its back. It is for this reason that the order marks its own and prepares always to fight back against the ignorant. I still believe that one day we shall all come together, man and deep one, and live in harmony in Dagon's city, but until that can come to pass, the decree passed down by Lord Dagon through Father Marsh and the faithful, let any who harms a child of Dagon answer to the ocean itself that salt water may roil in his lungs. Boothby conducts the stay on the case home action and is successful. Meanwhile, for the first time since they separated, Baxter entirely misses a scheduled weekend with his family. He promised months ago that he'd take the kids up to a lodge in the mountains that he has fond memories of from his childhood, and while they were there, he'd spend the night with his wife, trying to see if they could reconnect and figure out where they each fit in each other's lives. That weekend comes and goes without a word from Baxter. His wife eventually finds him in his office, buried in a pile of intimidating books with extremely concerning titles such as Magic's Most Foul and Obscure Secrets of the Arcane. He's unshaven, his hair disheveled, and he looks like he hasn't slept in a week. He isn't even aware of what day it is. Baxter can no longer return to normality. His wife gives him a look of disappointed pity, failing to get through to him, and leaves. Baxter has undertaken the self-improvement home action, improving his occult knowledge, to better prepare him for the things to come. And now, we resume Call of Cthulhu, Fall of Innsmouth.
Welcome back, everyone. You've once again entered the world of eldritch horror. Good luck. For this session, you'll be glimpsing the blighted town of Innsmouth for the very first time. It's been a constant presence in your investigations thus far. Everything you've been through has originated from Innsmouth, but this is the first time you'll be there, in person, in enemy territory. You'd best keep your wits about you, because I, as ever, am your keeper, your not necessarily benevolent keeper, who will be doing their very best to inflict grievous bodily and psychological harm upon your characters. This is the first session of our new scenario entitled Old Acquaintance. It's been several months since you dealt with the ordeal involving Carter Anderson and Henry Snowden and his attempts to form the minds of young children into deep ones. Fall has arrived, thrusting Arkham into a cold and dreary Massachusetts autumn. A cold front has blown in from the sea, and the Miskatonic Valley has become the type of place where people will only be seen outdoors They have very important business to attend to. So we start with Lord Smythe. Lord Smythe, while the others hoped and prayed that maybe their lives might return to some semblance of normality, that maybe with the case involving Carter Anderson closed, that perhaps the horrors of Innsmouth might trouble them no longer. But you knew differently, Smythe. You are here precisely because you seek the horrors of Innsmouth. They've become your white whale. And so, you've established yourself in Arkham for the time being, occupying the elite executive suite of the Miskatonic Hotel that was previously the temporary residence of Charles Anderson, your long-time associate, the wealthy industrialist who moved on from Arkham and decided that perhaps it was not a suitable place to open one of his electronics factories after all. It's been a suitable place for you to call home for now, Smythe, but not at all anything like your ancestral manor back home over the pond. By your standards, you're slumming it. But if that's what you've got to do to find that elusive white whale, you'll happily put up with it for now. For Colin's part, it's more luxury than he's experienced in his whole life, so he's more than happy. And he has a broad grin on his face this day as he barges into the second bedroom that you've turned into a study. The postman dropped something off for you, my lord. He was very confused. Took him a while to find out that this is where you were, but maybe it's a postcard from over the pond. You know, maybe we're gonna get some news from everybody we left behind in the civilized lands, and maybe we've got some respite from this wasteland they call America.
I wouldn't put too much hope in them. I wouldn't put too much hope in jolly old England, old John.
Eagerly.
If they'd had any guts, there'd be more of us here. He takes a letter opener that can double as a stiletto and slits it.
Slits the envelope open, and out drops a single piece of paper. Looks like it's been through the wars. It's all crumpled. It's yellowed. The edges are covered in either tea stains or tear stains. The handwriting is hard to decipher at first. It takes you a few moments, and you have to hold it under the light of the desk lamp before you can finally make sense of it. And I'm putting a picture of it up in Owlbear Rodeo for you. The handwriting is familiar. Not something you would have expected to be reading anytime soon. A missive from the past, from someone you haven't heard from in quite some time. Dated Wednesday, September 15th, 1926. A scant 2 days ago. Go ahead and read it out for me, Lord Smythe. It is addressed to you, after all.
Well, my spectacles, damnable work here. My dear old friend, though it has been years since we last corresponded, I hope that our bond of camaraderie is as strong as ever. News reached my ears that you are staying in Arkham recently, and I can think of nobody suited to assist me in this matter. Recent events have led me to see things which should not be seen by a rational man. I'm sure my life is in mortal danger because of it. Please come here as soon as possible. I spent the last month trying to live a quiet life on the old family farm near Innsmouth. Remember when I told you of how it had been abandoned? and I do not wish to spend my twilight years in fear of such things. You will find my farm on Martin Street, just beyond the town limits. Pray, as you pass through the town itself, be careful and never linger. Yours faithfully, Corporal Willie Harden. Old Willie.
Old Willie. You haven't seen him since the Great War. You remember him as a jovial young man. He left his wife and farm in rural Massachusetts behind to fight in the Great War. He was tall with short brown hair. He had the kind of looks that made women swoon. He was strong-willed, in total control of his emotions, and things that would leave the hardest men with terrible shell shock seemed to be water that simply rolled off his back.
That man had a stoicism that would put a Spartan to shame. The fact that he's using all capital letters in the last two words, this is quite serious.
Indeed, if he is the same Willie that you remember, that strong-willed corporal who was always in control, always ready to face what came, with a stoic and masculine air about him, the fact that he is writing in all capitals, the fact that he is alluding to his life being in mortal danger is, quite frankly, out of character and concerning to you, but also you feel deep within you that sense of excitement brewing. The chase is afoot again.
Innsmouth. Can't be a coincidence. They've got this stretch of coast locked down. It's just their sort of country. It's probably not the lair of wherever Dagon might be, but it might be another step closer. Well, and if he's just seeing things, wouldn't it be the first time I've had to slap some sense into a willy or two? All right.
Cool. So it's not a postcard then, says Colin, looking
It's a
disappointed.
cry for help. Sorry.
A cry for help? I was at least hoping for a coupon book, you know.
Coupon? What's that?
Oh, you know, something these Yanks have got. You know, you cut it out of a book and you take it into the shop and you know, they give you a discount just 'cause the piece of paper says so. And they stamp
That's
a
what
hole
they
in it.
instituted instead of the peerage? Well, back home I could get a discount by just dropping my... Oh, this is so trashy. So needlessly American. I feel like vomiting. All right.
That place downtown, Boothby's, they got a sale on. I was hoping for a coupon so I could get $1 off that new Detective Phillips box set.
They're so trashy, but you can't stop reading them, can you? They're kind of like something that'll kill you eventually.
Oh, he's a man we should all aspire to be, chain smoking, and he'll do 3 dames while he fights off a handful of bad guys.
You should invest in something healthier for you. A better pastime. Cigarettes, perhaps. All right. I believe that the time has come. They tested their trial by fire. We tested them in a trial by fire. And they came through. Oh, but the one that lost her head, poor thing. Let's go and see about gathering the rest. I think it's time to tell them the truth of why we're here.
I've been waiting for this day, my lord, says Colin. You've given me fits and spurts and little glimpses, but, you know, I never heard the story, and I'm in the mood for a good ghost story, I am. And so...
It's a horrible tragedy. Gather them.
And
Bring
so...
them here.
It's the very next night. And you're all gathered in what was once Charles Anderson's luxurious suite at the Miskatonic Hotel. Lord Smythe has made his personal marks on it. The fine upholstery and the wallpaper is covered under layers and layers of old newspaper clippings featuring stories of bizarre shipwrecks and unexplained disappearances off the coast. And in the lounge room, taking pride of place on the wall, is the painting that Lord Smythe purchased from the priest at the Arkham Church, featuring what you now understand to be a depiction of that cave under the beach at Falcon's Point. A line of children stripped nude being praised, judged by Deep Ones. And it's almost as if the Deep Ones are appraising and judging you as you take your seats around the coffee table in the centre of the room, as Colin staggers back and forth, pouring you cups of tea from a large porcelain teapot. And you realise that there is one among your number you've not seen before. Ash, go ahead and introduce your new character to us.
There's a graying man in front of you, and he's got a kind face. He's not a particularly good-looking man, but he's not ugly. And you would notice a little white ring on the collar of his black shirt. And he's just standing very comfortably. He seems happy with where he is.
This is Hamish. And Hamish, the reason you're here is because, well, it's because of Ruth. Poor Ruth. Her family used to be members of your flock. Their faces, a semi-regular fixture in the crowd at your church when you would conduct your sermons. And although Ruth herself stopped attending your sermons in her teenage years, you still maintained a sort of semi-casual relationship with her parents. Her father constantly spoke to you at length and confided in you about his worries for poor Ruth, for this acting thing that she had set her mind to, and how it would take her to places far away, places that are not fit at all for a young girl to visit on her own. And then, of course, came news of Ruth's death. Murdered at the hands of criminals, occultists in rural Massachusetts, and, well, part of you wanted to understand what led Ruth down this path. But there was also a part of you that had been hidden away for so many years, that was genuinely curious at what manner of occultism, what strange worldview Ruth had apparently become immersed in. Among her personal effects, you found a telephone number and an address that led you to a detective by the name of Baxter. And it's through Baxter that you're here tonight, assembled among these people, this eccentric-looking British lord who looks like he carries an air of sinister danger around him at all times. Baxter himself, a detective who is a detective in name only, whose office instead led you to believe that he spends most of his time performing accountancy. Boothby, the son of a wealthy department store CEO, and, of course, Connie, a woman dressed like a fortune teller at a carnival. What are your initial thoughts as you gaze upon Ruth's so-called compatriots for the first time, Hamish?
Hamish just clears his throat, and he says, I believe you all knew Ruth.
Yes, and hope she doesn't meet the same end that you, yes, I mean to say...
Other way around, old chap.
Yes, it's... once you've seen
It's
the
a
things that you've
tragedy,
seen, it starts to get a bit strange.
We knew her too briefly. She was a compassionate soul.
Far too young.
Another to the tally.
Baxter hasn't been the same since the events, and is a little bit reticent to have somebody else potentially getting into mischief with them.
Yeah, someone who, by the looks of him, hasn't been through it before, but there is something about Hamish that, gives you the sense that you can depend on him. Just being around him seems to calm you. And that's something you're going to need, knowing that despite all hopes of your life returning to normality, Lord Smythe has called you together, and you're about to face the machinations of dreaded Innsmouth once again.
Oh, my apologies. I've not introduced myself. Hamish McLaughlin. Nice to meet you.
Well met.
Hamish McLaughlin, that's a German name, innit? Says Colin.
Something like that.
Well, we'll forgive you for that.
No, I
Lord
hope you was
Fossil
on the
and
right
Smythe.
side during the war, you was.
Up in Glasgow, yeah.
Colin,
Always.
it's done now. There'll be no more trouble with Germany.
Like, I can't tell you what to do, but the things we will probably encounter are not for the faint of heart.
Perhaps. I think. Yes, you are Ruth's kin. I owe you an explanation, and the fact is, I owe all of you an explanation.
Happy with their tea, says Colin, doing one more lap around the lounge room. You best settle in. I think Lord Smythe is going to give us the long and short of it, so make sure you've got a warm cup at hand.
Just a splash of milk, thank you.
A splash of milk? Oh, you Yanks and your very strange practices.
What?
It's completely lost on Colin that you're not a Yank at all. The accent would usually give it away. So he just shrugs, darts out of the room, returns with a saucer, with a little bottle of milk, and drops some into your cup of tea.
Is Colin English? Or is he a weeaboo?
He came from wherever, like, Dickens novels are set. Like,
Born
not
and
actual
bred on
England, but...
Stratford upon Lie, he says proudly, smacking a fist against his chest. And I ain't ever seen anything outside Stratford upon Lie until Lord Smythe here called me into his service.
Stratford upon Lie. Right then.
Oi, village of 59 people, he says, as if that's something to be proud of.
What is this character? Sorry, kayfabe.
Yeah, kayfabe, exactly.
So,
This is normal.
Hamish, you seem to be a man of the cloth. It's interesting that someone like you would get involved in, well, to be frank, the occult like this.
Oh, I noticed the cross there, I did, says Colin. See?
Okay, well, it's I considered it part of my duties to the common man.
Let me tell you, then, what you are getting into, Mr. Hamish, and after that time, after this tale is done, should you decide that your duty does not demand so great a sacrifice, you may depart with no shame upon you. All of you may.
Let's hope it doesn't come to that.
I will be succinct. My father was an agent for the British East India Company, as was his father before him. We made our wealth, our family did, by directing ships, purchasing more and more as voyages worked in our favor. For a time it seemed we were blessed. And then, one of our captains returned, blown off course from a storm, with a strange treasure in his hold. I was a boy when It was brought to our house. And I still have the one my father gave me from so long ago. And he pulls forth a coin, a heavy golden coin with a familiar symbol upon it.
Connie and Baxter and Boothby, you all immediately recognize the coin. It's your minds flash back almost 6 months ago now to that fateful night on Beacon Island, and this coin is almost identical.
I suppose you'll deign to tell us why you neglected to inform us about this when we met.
I'll come to that. I will come to that. Though if it had been pertinent to the matter at hand, I would have. I'll tell you this now. Regardless, we had no notion of what they were. Just bullion from some strange Pacifican nation. Indeed, we sent out a few more ships near the area to look for more treasure. None came back. This was not unusual at the time. We had a fleet to manage and the Japanese to subdue. Open up a new trading port. And then my father made an error. He sent one of the coins to Cambridge to an antiquarian to see if there were any histories to be learned from it. The antiquarian came back with a single word. Dagon. The only thing he could find was tied to an ancient god of some heathen nation or the other. God lost to time and memory, but it was laid, and my father began making inquiries. I was out of the country when it happened. I was doing our duty in fighting the Boers down in Africa. Helping the best general we've ever had set up concentration camps. And killing for God, Queen, and country. Doing my duty, damn it. When word came to me that my father had been institutionalized, that he had killed half his household and my own mother, and been locked away.
Or even the servants, says Colin.
Half of them, the ones that didn't run. I returned home as soon as I could, and found that matters were much worse than that. Not only was my father institutionalized, but our ships had been hitting misfortune after misfortune, lost at sea again and again. And I went and saw my father in the asylum. And I knew that I was talking to a sane man. He mentioned figures in the night. He mentioned people bearing long knives, and some that seemed to be great of girth, with hands full of knives. It made little sense, but I chalked it down to him being muddled in the assault. It seemed like we were the target of a cult. And indeed, when I searched the home for more clues, I found that all the treasure that we still had hidden had been rounded up and taken away. And only that. The other riches we'd gathered from the far corners of the Orient and beyond were still there. Clearly, there was some sort of religious conspiracy at work. But when I started investigating, when I started using my connections, I found doors shutting. I found people turning away. I saw fear and recognition in the eyes of people I respected. And I knew then that this conspiracy was deep, sunk its deep golden roots into my homeland. There were
I
attempts
would-
made on my life. There were more servants murdered. I would burn through friends one by one, burn through the rest of our fortune trying to figure out what was going on, trying to find clues. And at the age of 36, well past my prime, I was given orders to the front to fight the Huns. I was thrown into the meat grinder. Once again, though my leg was bad, though my service to the god, queen, and country was impeccable, I was sent there to die. But I didn't. I liquidated the fortune. I sent detectives throughout the world looking for some damnable trace of things. And then I read the paper, and one of my detectives said there was more to your story. I traveled here. I found a contact, befriended him. You're our patron for the last journey. And I scrutinized you. And I saw in your faces familiar signs of those who'd encountered this cursed coin and its ilk. But I tell you now, what we saw in that cave, those things, I believed we were dealing with a mortal cult, some conspiracy, some thing rational. Those were... I don't know what those were, but I know they bleed. My father died in an asylum, a sane man, broken. All of my relatives, who haven't since deserted, are dead. I'm the last of my line to bear this name. And I intend to find this Dagon. Whatever idol they worship, whatever fishman they give that name. And I intend to put a 404 Nitro Express round through between his eyes.
Here, here, calls Colin.
To that end, a friend of mine happened to end up in Innsmouth a few years after the war. I thought little of it, but now he calls for help. And Lord Smythe shows the letter.
So I would like everybody to make a sanity check, but I will offer Hamish a choice here. Hamish, you've not been through what the rest of the group has been through. And although there is something about Lord Smythe's story, the man speaks as if he believes what he is saying, I will leave it up to you, Hamish, whether or not you believe this truth. And if you do believe it is truth, you may make a check like everyone else. If you don't believe it is truth, then you go ahead and instead make a power check.
Sure. I think that Hamish would. He thinks there was fragments of truth within a lot of nonsense. And he passed on that.
Yeah,
It's a hard pass, actually.
I'll pass. How'd everyone else on their check?
I don't think critical successes. But critical successes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Across the board.
so for passing,
After cave this in a bit.
for passing the check, no son loss. It is, after all, just a story. You faced these things the Lord Smythe spoke of himself. Except for you, Hamish. Some fragmented, half-buried memories begin to rumble in the back of your mind, and I would like you to go ahead and make either an anthropology or an occult check for me.
I'll push on anthropology. It's a fail.
Something familiar stirs in the back of your mind, and you get the sense that that story he told, that it should mean something to you, that more than there being seeds of truth, there is something that you should know and understand intimately, yet at this moment, it's lost to you. You can't quite put your finger on it. Well, says Colin, blimey, I should have offered you all whiskey if I knew there was going to be a ghost story like that one. He looks over at...
Bax already has whiskey.
Yeah. He says, orders up if anyone would like a shot. He peers over at Hamish. Except you, father, man of the cloth, I'm sure you don't drink. Wouldn't let the stuff touch your lips.
Bloody, I'm Catholic. It's fine.
The Glenfiddich for you, then.
Yeah, that'd be
Boothby
lovely.
kind of slams his hand on the arm of the chair and stands up and is like, You can't be serious with this. After everything that we've been through, you're gonna drag us back here and throw us like lambs to the fucking slaughter at these things for what? Some family pride? Why should we have anything to do with this?
I heard you say something about shooting a god as well. That doesn't make much sense.
Excuse me, I'm...
Shooting a
These
god.
things...
Bah. There are no gods, they bleed.
Things. Not
What
humans,
kind
not
of things?
people. Fish
Well, Mr. Bothby,
things.
the
Fish
reason
things.
I believe that you should help me attend to this business is that this conspiracy is very thorough and very patient. I evaded many attempts upon my life throughout the years, and that only because I'd seen the treasure. You held it in your hands, man! What do you think they're going to do to you if you just let them be? If you cower away in the middle of some desert? If you shun the sight of the ocean for years? Think they'll do. They'll wait. No. I'm offering you the chance to meet them on your terms, with steel and shot in hand. But if you want to walk out of this door, go without guilt for me. But it won't be me you'll have to worry about.
Adventure and glory and whatnot, just like Detective Phillips, says Colin, with a sort of
Glory.
pleading look at Boothby.
We saw someone's head get ripped off their fucking neck, and that's glorious?
Aye,
No.
Detective Phillips would find out who did it, and he would show him what's for. He would a swift one too.
We
Wait,
did,
surely have something
surely you
better
don't
to
mean
go do.
Ruth. Surely you don't mean Ruth.
Yes. Ruth. Head. Gone.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hamish. I was hoping to break it to you in gentler terms.
You brought him here without telling him?
I just told him!
Lord above.
Well, you can see what you're getting into
Acquaintance.
now, can't you?
Give me that whiskey back. You don't deserve it, Boothby.
Kings,
Take the
Mr.
fucking whiskey.
Boothby.
But I think we should all lay off the booze. Shut a minute.
I haven't had a drop because
First
I
time I've
haven't
heard that from a
slept.
Catholic.
If the
It's
man
hard,
of
I know.
the man of the cloth says no drinking, I ain't drinking, says Colin as he pushes the bottle of whiskey away. It slides over the coffee table, and then he folds his arms and he looks at Boothby, almost with the look of a hurt child on his face, and he says, It's got all the makings of a great story, don't it, Mr. Boothby? A ancient conspiracy, and monsters, and ne'er-do-wells with guns murdering fair maidens, and a brave detective what's gonna put it all right.
Throughout this, Hamish's eyes are just sort of... He's lingering on Baxter, trying to size him up. Specifically, his stability of mind.
Yeah.
Baxter is deciding to be the adult in this entire fucking conversation. So, if you haven't been brought here with knowledge of what it is we've seen and what we've done, we should catch you up. Not only is it the right thing to do, but at least we can get our story straight then.
That would be appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter.
So Baxter spends the next, 15 minutes
Night.
trying to disseminate information amidst the yelling and attempting to drink.
Yeah, you've got Boothby trying to edge out of the room. You've got Colin interjecting with things that don't quite make sense. The whole time, Connie just sits there staring, silent, imperiously, and by the time you've managed to impart the broad strokes version of what you've been through to Hamish, night has fallen. Colin has silently gotten up, lit all the lamps in the room, and your faces, the shadows cast by your faces are long in the flickering lamplight. And then finally Baxter finishes his story, Hamish, and you've heard firsthand how Ruth met her end.
Hamish just lingers looking at Baxter for a moment and then nods, and he turns towards Connie and says, "And what are you, lass? You've not said a word since I've come in."
Quite a harrowing experience.
It's harrowing. Eh?
Not one I don't get any pleasure in recalling.
And so will you corroborate this version of events?
Yes, what he says is true.
Hamish doesn't know Connie, not like the rest of the group. But her being quiet, her silently letting Baxter tell his story, is, for her, a confirmation of its truth. And so, you decide to spend the night here, and leave for Innsmouth, leave for Corporal Willie Harden's farm, first thing in the morning.
I don't think Boothby agreed to that, but he will come along because he's not gonna.
Yeah, why does Boothby come along?
I think that he kind of is under the impression that he's the only sane one and needs to be here for the safety and sanity of the rest of the group.
Yeah, especially when there's new people being brought in who have no idea what they're in for. And Boothby's being stoic, masculine about it. He would so like to just tell Lord Smythe to take it and stick it where he thinks it where he thinks it belongs, but
Joke's on you, I'm into that.
Boothby,
that's Colin's place.
Boothby is the one who has to maintain that strength, that he's the rock, the sole source of stability, or at least he thinks. And so, as everyone eventually retires to bed, Hamish is the last one left. And Hamish, do you have a routine before you retire for the night? Left alone to finally process all of these things that you've been told, these squabbling madmen and women and their outlandish tales. What are you thinking?
I think that Hamish is entertaining this for now.
Well, it seemed to be enough for Ruth to go along with it, at any rate. And you remember Ruth was a smart girl. She had that spark. And she wouldn't have gone along with this if there wasn't something that grabbed her. And so, we move ahead to the next day. You end up leaving Arkham at just shy of 11:15 in the morning. It takes several hours after you awaken to gather your bearings, settle any last-minute requests and any outstanding business you don't want to leave behind. Make the best breakfast you can in the Hotel Miskatonic's dining hall. And then you're on your way. All of you gathered in... Well, I'll ask a question. This is Lord Smythe's expedition, for lack of a better word. Do you all go in his car? Or does Boothby coax...
It would, Sorry, go
ahead.
on.
I was going to say, or does
Goes up.
Boothby coax some of the group, at least, into his Rolls-Royce Phantom, so that they may travel on their own terms?
Boothby's driving whether anyone wants to or not. Like, he's not...
Yeah,
he doesn't
taking
care
his
if
own
anyone
car.
wants to... But he'll let people into his car if they promise not to
Yeah.
scuff it.
Lord Smythe would also like to rent a somewhat battered and native-looking truck, if possible.
So I would
And-
ask...
Get a few more things of equipment. Nothing
Yeah.
major. I can reveal it later if you want, or I can go into it now.
Go ahead, reveal to me what you're getting.
Bear traps. Heavy-duty bear traps.
Heavy-duty bear traps. Lord Smythe, go ahead and make a credit rating roll for me.
Okay. Let's see, that went up a little last episode. Oh. And as I go and find the dice and find the numbers and set things up, I'm just going to go in and put the disclaimer that Lord Smythe's attitudes and opinions on things are not necessarily those of the player.
Of course.
He is very much a product of his times. Which is not as...
I'm actually this much of a misogynist in real life.
And this is true, I can vouch.
Yeah.
You also
Ash has-
hate men.
This whole time, Ash has been a very masculine Scottish priest.
Yes, hello. I'm
Failure,
Scottish.
but that's a failure, but not by much, so I will spend 6 points of luck to make it so.
And so, you're on your way. Half of the group accompanying Boothby and his Rolls-Royce Phantom. And, well, Hamish, who do you go with? Boothby, who seems to be the most well-adjusted of the group in his...
Boothby, who seems to be the most well-adjusted of the group.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a
Question mark.
in his Rolls-Royce Phantom, or are you going to go with the old rust-flecked Model A truck rented by Smythe, the entire back compartment of which is filled with heavy-duty bear traps where Colin Jolley is plunked down in the driver's seat, whistling like a little boy as he drives.
You would actually find the latter much more comfortable.
Yeah, it is a bit more salt of the earth, isn't it? And so the two vehicles spend the early afternoon making their way through the Miskatonic Valley. Through the quiet, cold, primeval wilderness of rural Massachusetts. And as you grow closer to the coast, the winds seem to grow colder. The frost more biting, seeming to dig into your very skin like thousands of tiny little knives. And it's at about 1:30 p.m. that the mist begins to roll in. Thick mist, seemingly out of nowhere, blows in from the Atlantic. It obscures the woods and the hills around you so that they are nothing more than undifferentiated shapes. The bodies of giants moving, slumbering in the countryside around you. Your journey to Innsmouth is an ominous one. Signposts are missing, painted over or toppled into the brush. When you stop to ask directions of local farmers, they give directions hesitantly, if at all. Eventually, after countless dead ends and wrong turns, you crest one last hill and come upon Innsmouth. See the town there on the edge of the coast below you, like a big, black, pulsating growth. On the edge of the water, the mist has somehow grown thicker, stronger. You can barely see a car's length in front of you, and as you descend down the hill towards the town itself, it almost feels as if you're entering another world, as if the calm autumn countryside of the Miskatonic Valley is melting away, replaced with something else, replaced with a void, endless nothingness that goes on forever and ever, and conceals things that you could only imagine in your wildest nightmares. Innsmouth is hideously squalid, a rotting, half-deserted town of perhaps 300, 400 people. Many buildings that line the streets are collapsing or boarded up, and a terrible fishy stench hangs on the town, seemingly regardless of the wind direction. The streets are narrow and ill-paved. Most of the street signs apparently missing, or maybe never erected at all. The town appears ancient, decayed, and foreboding. And most strange of all, you find, as your two vehicles make their way through Innsmouth, as they pass an abandoned market square, shuttered houses and businesses, not a single soul appears to be out on the streets. The entire town apparently completely abandoned. I'm going to bring up a map of Innsmouth and Owlbear Rodeo. Just as Colin reaches for the glove compartment with his spare hand, fishes out a tattered piece of paper and flaps it out, nearly blocking out most of the windscreen, revealing the old street directory that Lord Smythe managed to pick up from one of the stores on Arkham's High Street. Hardin's farm, according to his directions, is way down at the end of Martin Street, beyond the northern residential, beyond the riverfront factories and the iconic Innsmouth salt marsh. As you make your way through the seemingly abandoned streets, I'd like everyone to go ahead and make a listen check for me.
I'm going to spend 2 luck to make that a pass.
2 luck.
Ooh, you probably won't need to. I just got 12 against 50.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll leave it.
So that'll
And
cover Baxter's.
Boothby got a
1
1,
gets
so...
20.
Boothby got a 1, so that will cover either Smythe or Connie if they fail. How did they go?
I failed. I'm a
Mm.
bit deaf from all the shelling during the wars.
Yeah, and Connie?
Yeah, it's only a. I'm gonna push it.
Push it.
I haven't got a bad chance of doing it.
There you go.
We go.
That's a hard success.
Hard success. So that is a group pass overall. So, Innsmouth is apparently deserted. Streets are empty of people. The town's businesses are closed, shuttered. And The only sounds you can hear are the sounds of the distant ocean crashing against the shore, of wind blowing through the streets, of shingles and signs banging against the peeling facades of the buildings. But then you hear something else. Hamish is the first to hear it. Then Boothby. Then Connie. It starts as a distant hum, like the sound of insects buzzing coming from somewhere unseen in the impenetrable mist. The two vehicles stop for a moment as you bring the existence of this sound to the attention of the others. And there, straining over the rumbling of the idling engines, you realise it's not insects buzzing. It's a din of distant voices, talking, singing, chanting, as if in religious fervour, but distant enough away that whatever words they're saying are meaningless. To you it is just an indecipherable din. What do you do?
Did anyone else notice this? Sorry.
Yeah, but you're the first, Hamish. You're the first, but then eventually the rest of the group is brought around, and you all just stop, listening, straining over the idling car engines, trying to make it out. And that's when you realise that it's voices, but not exactly what they're saying. However, you can roughly hear where they're coming from.
You hear that?
We're still driving, right?
You're still in your cars, though you've paused for just a moment in an abandoned street, just so you could try to make out what that noise is.
Some loud-ass voices.
Yeah, indeed.
They're not shy. The voices bounce in the fog. Hard to get a bead.
We should leave. We should leave immediately.
Continue
I trust
on.
your judgment. Let us leave.
Press on through the town to Harden's farm.
You're not
You did
curious?
say do not linger.
Do not linger. To you, Hamish, with your background and with your anthropology skill, for the voices to be this loud, the only time you would imagine that to ever occur in your experience is at some sort of religious ceremony, something of great importance, a
Or
wedding,
an event.
an event, a cultural event, a festival, a celebration, a birth, a
You're not
death,
curious. It sounds like a party.
a marriage. And so you deign to press on, not lingering. The engines roar to life and the cars continue on. And I would like Boothby to make me a drive check while Smythe goes ahead and makes a navigate check to assist Colin.
Oh dear.
The mist is seemingly thicker by the second. You can no longer see more than a couple of feet, if that, beyond your vehicles. The street signs are missing, and every block of Innsmouth seems to be the same stretch of dilapidated, crumbling waste. You have the map, but it's hard to tell where you are. There are certainly no landmarks, none that you know of.
Well, that's a fail. Not a bad one, but it's a failure.
It's a
nonetheless.
fail. And Boothby?
I failed so bad on a push. Oh, it's so
Yeah,
bad.
oof, a push.
Push? Oh god.
I got a
Colin-
96.
Oh,
Colin glances back and forth from the map to the windscreen, his face screwing up in puzzlement. I can't. My lord, It says all we need to do is move for the northern residential. If we get on Church Street, we could... He peers out the window. I can't seem to make any sense of where we are. It all looks the same, and Boothby don't look to be having much more luck either. Boothby attempts to sort of... You see him move ahead, and he attempts to turn off, maybe go down one of the small side streets, but he seems to realise that in this fog, going off on his own is probably not wise, and it ends up Boothby following the old Model A truck, the blind leading the blind.
Well, if I keep going west, we'll be in a better spot. North and west. Damn, the whole fog's hiding the sun, though.
Continue on. All is quiet, save for the distant waves. And that din, those voices, at various points they grow louder and softer and louder, as if they're moving further away or closer to you, or as if there are breaks and dips in the song, in whatever ceremony, whatever arcane ritual they're involved in. And it seems as if you're travelling through Innsmouth for hours. You're not sure how long it's been. It doesn't seem to be growing darker. Still looks like it's high noon, but there are no clock towers, no timepieces, no sundials on the streets, nothing to indicate the passage of time. You turn left and emerge between two crumbling wooden shacks into what appears to be some sort of village green. It's a big, wide, open square. You can just make out a cobblestone path winding through overgrown grass, and the square is ringed by a line of thick trees that are so close together that they're almost gnarled into one solid wall of wood and leaf, casting a long shadow over the green and everything within. And there, on the very edge of the green, seemingly serving as a guardian to all that lies within, is what at first you think is a Masonic temple or lodge. This large hall of classic revival design boasts 4 massive pillars framing the main doorway. The white paint has long faded to grey and is peeling badly in the salt-tinged sea air. A black sign with cracked gold lettering over the pediment reads, Esoteric Order of Dagon, and it is here, as your 2 vehicles draw parallel with this building, that you hear the voices at their loudest and immediately determine that the cacophony originates from within this building.
Well, it seems fate is guiding our steps.
Proximity to the building, you can make out snatches of what the voices are saying. Seems to be some sort of chant. Could be Latin, it could be some other language, definitely not English. A string of strange, foreign-sounding words, harsh, throaty sounds, hisses, clicks, all in rapid succession. Hamish, I believe you're the only one who has the anthropology skill, are you not?
That's right.
Yeah.
61 anthropology.
Go ahead and roll anthropology for me.
Which sounds like a weird number, but the default is 1%.
I know, that you add on to the base, yeah.
That's a pass.
What the others hear is simply a string of foreign words and sounds rising and falling in intensity. To you, it's clear that this is a religious ceremony. The people within this building are chanting in religious fervor. It's almost as if they're reciting scripture. The intensity and loudness at which they're doing it brings to mind to you only two possible situations. It's a celebration either of new life or a funeral. These could be the sounds of mourners reciting whatever scriptures are part of their odd religion to consign the departed to the afterlife.
This sounds important, though. I don't think we should interrupt them.
Thick double doors made of very strong-looking wood separate the petitioners from you on the outside of the building. And I will say that Smythe, you at the very least, are feeling a strange sense of curiosity that you should get out of the car, climb the stairs up to the temple, and throw those doors open. See for your own two eyes what's happening inside.
He's feeling the urge. This is something he's been chasing a very, very long while. But he's not going to throw the doors open. He's going to slide his pistol into his belt. Keep the car running, Colin. I'll be back shortly if all goes well. And he's going to try to sneak around the side and look for an entrance that isn't going to get him silhouetted against the light.
So, the rest of you see Lord Smythe climb out of the cab of the Model A truck, pistol visible in his belt, and begin to trudge across the muddy street towards the temple. What do you do?
The man said never linger, so we should never linger. I'm going to follow him.
There you are.
Hamish, you remaining in the car?
That was me assenting. I'll join him.
Yeah. Connie, you and Boothby will be the only ones left.
Should really go in there? The town doesn't like outside. I've heard they don't like outside.
Well, I'm not saying in here. What we want to say, risk whatever it is that's going to happen to us. You know that something's going to happen to us. After last time, have we not?
Yes, that's why I'm not liking the idea of going there.
You want the car, then I'm leaving.
This is insanity. You all realize this, right? We can't just go. Like, what are we even gonna do if we get in there? Just look at them?
Say hello.
Yeah, because we really can do is just saying to strangers.
I'm going to have a look, and then I'm going to retreat.
You think they'll have tea for us, maybe? Some cookies? Like, what do you all expect to happen here?
I'm thinking that if all goes well, they won't even know I...
So Boothby and Connie remain behind. But everyone else... Yep,
I didn't
Boothby,
say
go ahead.
that. Boothby's just complaining.
Yeah, he's just complaining. So,
Although, the more you complain, the more you lower the chance of our remaining undetected.
So this seems to me that the group is acknowledging that you should not split up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, even though you all feel that prevailing sense that something is wrong, that you should leave Smythe to his own devices, pull the doors of the car shut, and continue on. You don't want to leave one of your own behind, not in a place like this. And you know Smythe can be a bit of a loose cannon, and, well, you're not quite sure this is a church. It might be private property. He could be trespassing. He could get in trouble. And so you find yourselves clambering out of the vehicles and trudging across the muddy street to catch up with him. And I'd like everyone to go ahead and make a stealth check for me.
Fail.
Fail.
Pass.
No way I'm pushing that.
Yeah.
Like, it's a metagame? No.
Yeah, no way. That's probably a very bad idea.
That's a fail.
Wow, is
Also
Baxter
failed.
the only one who passed?
Yeah, it looks like Baxter might be the only one who passed. Because I
He
doubt...
plays
Damn.
so sneaky.
Wow.
Acquaintance.
I think
He's a
Connie
detective!
Yeah. Well, you know, detectives have to sneak occasionally. I presume Connie and Boothby did not pass.
Nope.
With a 91, no.
Yeah, and definitely not going to push.
Nope.
So that's
Nobody push. Nobody push.
Nobody push.
Not
So
gonna
that
happen,
is...
no.
So that is overall a group fail. But Baxter, at least, Baxter gets closer to the building than the others. He crosses the street quickly and he realizes that the others are just gonna cause trouble. He remembers back in the cave under the beach when you tried to sneak up on the deep ones, when Smythe's last-minute mistake eventually resulted in Ruth losing her head. And so Baxter just sighs and realizes he should be the responsible one. He holds out a hand to the others to wait and approaches the building, sticking to the cover of the trees that line the side of the village green, approaching the temple of the esoteric order of Dagon. Baxter, you manage to get to the door itself. Close enough to hear the sound of rustling on the other side, scraping chairs and feet. And then suddenly, those in the hall began to chant faster and faster, their voices building to a frenzy. Then suddenly, bang! Crash! Bang! Bang! Crashes echo from all around you, seemingly coming from the mist itself. The sound of heavy objects bashing against the facades of buildings. And Baxter, I'll allow you to make a spot hidden check, as you got to be the closest.
Sure. That is a regular pass.
Regular pass. Stopped in your tracks, you look around, trying to find the source of this new disturbance. And then you see the source of the noise. On the top floors of the buildings surrounding the hall, lining the street behind you, the boards covering the windows begin to shake and splinter, as though people of great strength are behind them, trying to break free, throwing the full forces of their bodies against them. This is playing out all around you. Every building in town seemingly a source to its own cacophony, its own din of bangs and crashes of some unseen force desperately straining to get out, to get to you and the others. What do you do?
Baxter's gonna alert the others. Kind of like raise his hand and try and signify what's happening.
Yeah. Baxter calls out, and you stop where you are in the middle of the street, and you're hearing the loud bangings and crashes, and after a few moments you see it too. Something straining, something inside the building, smashing against the boarded up windows. Meanwhile, the voices emanating from the hall grow louder, more intense, more frenzied by the second. Sense that something is very wrong grows rapidly. What do you do?
Where's Lord Smythe?
He's behind you. He's about, I'd say, a building's length behind you.
I thought he was going to be leading this whole thing.
Yeah, but you ended up doing it because you're the one who passed the sneak. So you basically got ahead of him and managed to get to the front of the building before whatever is inside seemingly grew aware of your presence, and now something horrible is happening. And what are you all going to do about it?
Is this the address we were actually trying to find, or is this a
This
stop-off
is
on the
not.
way?
This is a stop-off on the way. This is
Right.
something you
Sorry, I
happened
think I
upon
misunderstood
by
that.
chance. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I
this is
misunderstood
not-
that. Baxter's going to be making his way back to the car.
Yeah. Is Baxter just going to turn and run? Shout
He's not
everyone
gonna run.
back in the car?
He's not going to run. He's just going to make his way back, just
Yeah,
casually,
back in the car,
carefully.
Back in
Yep.
the car. And
So much for
seeing,
friendly greetings.
seeing Baxter's face screw up in determination, seeing him trudge back across the street from the village green towards the car, what do the rest of you do? Still keenly aware of the rising voices, the banging, the crashing.
I trust Baxter's instincts,
Yeah, no, Hamish is out of there.
and I've
Yeah.
been fighting this war, I've been fighting this war long enough to know you don't have to win every battle, you just have to survive. So I'll follow Baxter and beckon to the others.
Yeah, Boothby's basically like jumping into the front seat of,
Yeah.
of his
Yeah.
car. He's like climbing over things to get back.
As you clamber back into the vehicles, you pull the doors shut behind you just as the chanting in the hall climaxes. From within comes a loud cry. Dagon! And then from the boarded up windows in the rattling buildings comes an answer, a responding cry. Dagon! I'd like everyone to make listen checks, please.
That's a fail.
Pass.
Pass.
Fail.
Pass.
And Connie?
Actually, mine was a hard pass.
Hard pass.
What's my s- yeah, I'm gonna push this just cause. Okay, that's a pass.
Pass. As the engines of the vehicles roar to life and Boothby and Colin respectively floor it, slam their feet on the pedals, and the tyres screech in the mud and dirt of the street. Hamish, Smythe, and Connie hear, in response to the voices shouting Dagon, a resounding call from the sea, carried in the sea breeze. A voice as deep as the earth itself, repeating in kind, Dagon! It has bizarre, creaking undertones to it, ones that human throats cannot produce. And then suddenly, all is silent. The rattling and banging from the upper floors of Innsmouth buildings ends. The voices from within the temple cease. And the only sounds you can hear are the wind and the crashing of the distant waves. I would like Hamish Smythe and Connie to go ahead and make send checks for me, please.
That's a pass.
Let's see.
Knew we shouldn't have come here. I knew we shouldn't have.
Is a pass. Barely.
Pass. So for a pass, that is a send loss of 1d3, please.
Oof. 3 gone.
Same.
Same.
And on a fail.
Yeah, on a fail, 1d6 send lost, please.
Oh, 6.
6.
For fuck's sake.
Go ahead and make an intelligence check for me, Connie.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Whoops.
Hmm?
You might go insane.
In this game, I'm sure it's... yeah. What are the odds?
That's true. Never happens.
That is a 97, which is not a success.
Hey, that's good.
Not a pass. Well, your strategy, as described by the home action so far, Connie, is that you seem to be just blatantly refusing to acknowledge that anything that's happening is real. It's all just some big grift. And that's what this is. It's someone playing tricks. That's all this town is. It's a creepy seaside town. The people are a bit weird, but it's a trick. Just trying to drive the outsiders away. Still though, Boothby and Baxter, you didn't hear that strange call from the sea, and suddenly you see Hamish and Smythe and Connie, see them pause for a moment. The look on their face says it all. They're rattled for just a second at something you didn't even hear. But Connie, you're lucky. You don't lose control of your character. And what I was going to have you do is I was going to say, you realise that it's real. You realise that something is wrong with this town. And you would have been possessed by a sudden urge to escape. To fling open the doors of the car and run into the streets. Into the mist. You managed to control yourself, managed to maintain the presence of mind to stay where you are. But you are temporarily insane. Please go ahead and tick the box. The two vehicles continue on, the town once again uncannily silent. No living souls on the streets, no faces in the windows watching you pass by. Still no sign of the passage of time. Boothby, go ahead and make another drive check, as Lord Smythe makes another navigate check. Colin.
Oh, we're all doomed. Well, let's see if the dice are kind.
Yep.
Oh, wow. I actually made it.
I failed again and I'm too scared to push this time.
Alright, I'll
Join
roll
me.
a dice off screen. I won't tell you whether that was a pass or a fail. But as the mist seems to grow ever thicker, as it seems to converge, as you peer out of the windows of the car and realise that now even the facades of the buildings that line the streets are obscured, little more than misshapen grey shadows. I would like those of you who did not hear the Dagon cry from the ocean, which would be Boothby and Baxter, to make power checks for me, please.
That is a fail from Baxter.
Fail from Baxter.
Played
And
pass.
Boothby. Hard pass. Baxter, your hand is clasped on the hilt of the baseball bat, just beside the passenger seat. And you don't feel what Boothby does. Boothby, your hands gripped around the wheel of your car, your foot pressed down as hard as it will go on the accelerator, trying to find the way anyway through this town. Suddenly, you feel it. If it were a few decades from now and commercial airlines were a thing, you would probably describe it as the feeling one gets when the airline ascends and the atmospheric pressure makes your ears pop. A subtle shift, a change in the air. A sharp, stinging pain in both your ears. And then, Boothby, you see it looming out of the fog, and you feel your mouth dropping open in spite of itself as you realize what it is. Go ahead, Boothby, make a sun check for me.
Pass.
Pass. So that is a loss of 1 sanity. As you tell yourself this can't be real. This can't be real. But what is looming out of the fog directly in front of you, right on the edge of the street that you're currently travelling down? Looking just as you remember it, is Boothby's childhood home. The bay windows, the white weatherboard, the immaculately cared for garden, all of it exactly as you remember it. The white picket fence that lines the front yard, the mailbox with the word Boothby emblazoned on the side. Here. And just as you catch sight of it, in the corner of your eyes, you catch a flicker of movement. A face watching from the second floor bedroom window, the one that you remember as your own bedroom. Disappearing into the darkness, leaving only a ripple in the curtain. Everyone else, you just see Boothby stopping for a moment, transfixed on what appears to be just a random house. A house that seems to be in better condition than the others around it. The paint not peeling, the construction a bit more upper market, but still a random house nonetheless. To you, the letterbox doesn't say Boothby on it. The lettering has faded long ago.
Are we still in the cars traveling?
Yep.
Okay.
What do you do, Boothby?
I think Boothby definitely slows down for a moment and like watches, but has that moment of like, okay, this is clearly something is wrong with this entire town, so he shouldn't.
Yeah.
He should just move on.
If you'd failed your sun check from before, you would have felt an unmistakable urge to get out, go to the house, see who was staring at you from the upstairs window, but you can rationalize all this as just a trick of the light, of the bizarre atmosphere of this town doing strange things to your mind, if you like. Is that what you do, Boothby?
Yeah, he's comfortable just saying that this is a trick of the mind and just honestly probably speeding up a little bit.
Yeah. And seeing Boothby's Rolls Royce pick up pace, Colin slams his foot down on the pedal of the type of the Model A truck, and the engines roar as both vehicles scream ahead into the mist. leaving that single white weatherboard house behind, receding further and further away in the rearview mirror. Finally, whatever old gods are presiding over your journey through Innsmouth appear to smile upon you, and the fog begins to recede just enough that you're able to catch your bearings. You find yourselves travelling through the Great Innsmouth Salt Marsh. What, according to the roadmap clutched in Colin's hands, is just beyond the riverfront factories, making you sigh with relief as you realise that finally you're nearly at Harden's farm. Countless shorebirds swoop and soar above the expanse of reeds and sandbanks. The rutted road you're on is in such poor condition that even Colin, who's usually a fairly careful driver, has to stop almost to a standstill just to help this sturdy Model A truck negotiate it. Sorry, he apologises. It's just, we might lose a tyre, or the suspension might blow, or perhaps we'll get some scrapes off the oil pan and...
Go slow, Colin. It's time to be cautious.
Find yourselves before long on the northern edge of the marsh, with a rotting farmhouse before you, seemingly rising out of the brush. Beyond the farmhouse is a collapsed barn. As you watch, as your vehicles approach, a family of raccoons scamper out of it, darting away from the loud rumbling engines of your vehicles. A Model A truck, very similar to the one that Colin is driving, sits at the side of the farmhouse. Its paintwork in even worse condition than the one you're in. You can scarcely tell what colour it was originally, and it's the only sign of recent habitation. The farmhouse and the grounds themselves look as if they've sat untouched for decades, dilapidated, overgrown, and utterly devoid of order. The two vehicles stop. The engines go silent. You each take a deep breath and clamber out of the vehicle, your boots sinking down into the mud. And as you approach what you assume to be Willie Hanson's farmhouse, I'd like everybody to go ahead and make a spot hidden check for me.
If I must. Let's see.
That's a pass. I need to see how hard it is. What? Why did I say that?
How hard it
We're
is.
approaching Pardon.
That's a regular pass.
Getting into character for the Catholic
damn.
What was the
priest.
check, sorry?
Spot hidden.
Spot hidden.
Hard
That
pass.
is a
Oh,
that is a hard pass.
Hard pass.
that's a regular pass from Smythe.
regular.
I'm going to assume that's a fail.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
that's a fail.
And Boothby?
Hard pass.
Hard pass. So Baxter and Boothby, with the highest degree of success, you're the ones that notice as the rest of the group is trudging up the long, muddy driveway towards the farmhouse. You pass by the rusted old truck that's parked next to it. You two are the closest to the truck on the side of the group. And you notice something most strange. There's a dent in the bodywork just below the fender, and at first you think it's just another splotch of rust, but then you see it. What appears to be a dried blood stain seemingly baked into the bodywork of the vehicle. Baxter, Boothby, what do you do with this knowledge?
Well,
Register
I guess
that it's there?
First is to see if we can look inside the truck and see if anyone or anything is in there.
So, Boothby, I will ask you to go ahead and make another spot hidden check for me. Baxter, what would you like to do? The rest of the group has sort of just trudged on ahead and left you and Boothby next to the truck. They didn't see this bloodstain, this dent in the fender.
Hard pass again.
Hard pass?
I feel like Baxter's going to continue on. He's paying very close attention to those two words. Never linger.
Yeah. Well, that's a very logical thing to make. So he's just going to make a mental note that looks like Harden's truck was involved in some sort of collision. There's blood and a dent on the fender. He hurries to catch up with the others, but Boothby presses his face against the windows of the cabin. The windows covered in muck and grime and dirt and dust. And you don't see anyone inside the truck, Boothby, but you do see lying underneath the driver's seat, as if it was tossed aside and discarded in a rush, what appears to be a half-empty whiskey bottle, still with the brown paper bag wrapped around it.
Well, Boothby's not very thirsty at the moment, so I don't think that he'd be very interested in that.
You do notice that it's not a particularly expensive brand of whiskey, from what you can tell. But simply leaving it there in the cab of the car, you wouldn't consider that normal behaviour. Boothby, you have a Rolls-Royce Phantom. You have a nice taste in cars. I'm going to ask a question. Has that at all translated to either drive auto or mechanical repair as your skills?
Boothby has a 40 in drive auto.
Go ahead and make a drive auto check for me.
I failed. I'm not gonna push that.
Okay. So for having drive auto above base, I will give you as a freebie, as you pull away from the cabin of the truck, you notice the gear stick still twisted to the side and stuck in the drive position. As if the last person who drove this vehicle didn't have time to properly park it, as if they just stopped where they were, killed the ignition, and scrambled out. They left in a hurry, and usually this would indicate that they were probably in a rush or panicked. You put it to the back of your mind and catch up with the others who are approaching Willie Harden's townhouse. The porch creaks loudly as you put your weight on it, and as Smythe steps forwards and knocks on the front door, termites pour out of the door frame, travelling in an unbroken line down the side of the house and disappearing into a hole in the porch. You hear rustling, shuffling from behind the door, and then a voice speaks out. Ah! Who's there? That you, Smythe?
Corporal Harden. Are you well? Are you whole of body? Whole of mind?
There's a sigh of relief. You hear a series of clicks as Harden unlocks the door. Now you just stay where you are, let me get a good look at you. I ain't seen you in some time, I gotta make sure. See with my own two eyes. Finally, the door swings open, and I would like Connie to go ahead and make a send check for me.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a no.
That's a no. From the dim haze on the other side of the door, a stoutly built man lurches forwards, and as his face is illuminated by the late afternoon sunlight, you see that what stands before you cannot be human. His eyes seem to melt down his face, his lips almost non-existent, his mouth a mere slash, a gash in his chin, the entire right side of his head completely devoid of hair, his right eye large, bulging out of its socket, bloodshot, his skin grey, putrid and leathery. Connie, for a split second, you see the face of a deep one, and you feel your heart skip a beat. You stumble backwards, gasp, and fall off the stairs as you lose 1d3 san. Everyone turns to face you as Willie Harden steps forwards, his deformed face illuminated in the sunlight. He frowns as he peers down at you, Connie, sprawled at the base of the porch stairs. Ain't no need to apologize, dollface. I'm used to it. This is my mark of war, he says, as he runs a finger around his bulging right eye socket. It's what the white phosphorus did to me, you see. I'm used to it. I forget what a shock it is to other people. In his left hand, he clutches a sawn-off shotgun, as if he was holding it at the ready when you knocked on the door. His remaining healthy eye narrows as he takes in the sight of everyone. Hi, Smythe. Long time no see. He thrusts out a gnarled right hand.
Corporal Harden. It's good to see you alive.
Rest of you I don't... barely alive, he says. Rest of you I don't recognize.
I vouch for them. They have some experience with dealing with matters of the strange.
Quite right about that, he says. He gestures to Connie, who's still sitting sprawled beneath the stairs, and says, because if that's how she reacts to my face, well, there'll be worse to come.
We passed by something strange in town before we got here. Still trying to make sense of it.
You didn't linger, though, did you?
No.
Right, come. Come inside, he says, and as he gestures for you to enter, as Smythe passes, he introduces himself to each of you, holding out a hand. Willie Harden, pleased to make your acquaintance. You got the looks of a detective or something about you, he says to Baxter.
Well, for our intents and purposes, yes.
And you, a priest, if I were to say so.
Hamish is, like, stifling a laugh at the name as he held out his hand. Aye, that's right.
He sees the corners of your lip twist, and he says, look, I'm used to it. Willie Harden.
It's quite a name.
Yeah. It's Scottish by the sound of your accent. Well, I'll tell you what, I had to learn to fight like a Scottish laddie when I was a young man as well.
Boy.
Goes with the territory of being named Willie Harden.
I'll bet it does.
As for God, well, he frowns. All I can say is, well, I've been through the Great War, and look what the Huns did to my face, and I find myself questioning on some nights whether there is a God who allows things like this to happen to good people.
I will. We'll bring it on yet.
Not to interrupt this thrilling conversation, but you did call us out here in the middle of nowhere with all these strange things occurring, and, well, I think that's a pressing matter, don't you?
Yes, sir, he says. He quickly ushers you into his house, and as soon as you're all beyond the threshold, he pulls the door shut, and you watch as he latches not one, not two, but 3 different locking mechanisms, drawing a chain across a latch, twisting a knob, and latching another mechanism inside of itself. And then the sawn-off shotgun he was carrying, he lowers it down and rests it against the frame of the house. The interior of the house is just as decrepit as the exterior. The furniture is rotting away. Harden's footprints are clearly visible in the thick dust on the floor. The curtains are tightly drawn, and the only source of light in the room is an oil lamp sitting in the very center of the room on the dusty floor. Thank you for coming, he says as he sits down on a half-collapsed, moth-eaten sofa. There's a plastic bag of something on the couch next to him. You can't quite see the label in the dim light. He holds it out, proffering it to you. I was just about to tuck in for some dinner. Feel free to help yourself, he says, and you realize he's offering you a bag filled with noxious-smelling jerky.
How noxious are we talking?
We're talking that as soon as he thrusts the bag under your nose, you smell... It smells like you've stepped into a New York deli.
Okay, well that's not too bad. Hamish would take some gladly.
It doesn't taste as bad as it smells. It's... Despite the portion itself being quite small, it's hearty and filling as it goes down. He screws up the bag, grabs another handful of jerky, and bites into it as he makes himself comfortable. So, the letter, he says. Well, first of all, I want to say I'm sincerely happy that you've come. I wasn't expecting Sergeant Smythe to come and listen to the ramblings of an old man.
After what we went through, Mr. Harden, I owed it to you. I owed it to any man in the regiment who was on the line that day. Besides that, we are fairly certain that given recent events, that this may be related to an issue we've been working on.
This is his sole remaining eyebrow at you, and he says, you dealt with things like this before, then, eh?
What does the name Dagon mean to you?
There's a moment of silence as the word lingers in the air, and then eventually Willie shrugs, brushes his hand in the air. Can't say I know what it means. Maybe I heard some of those freaks in town say it.
Well, perhaps you'd better begin from the start.
Just so. But before I do, You passed through Innsmouth on your way here, I take it. I ain't been through that town much. Don't go there if I can help it. You see anything out of the ordinary? He says, letting the question hang, almost as if he's sort of fishing to see if he can trust you, if indeed he can trust that you'll believe the things he's about to tell you of.
We did indeed. And I assume we can sum up the business at the esoteric order of Dagon, the rattling windows and the names shouted from the seas.
As Lord Smythe goes on to recite what you encountered in Innsmouth, does anyone stop him? Is there any part of the tale that you would like to keep under wraps?
I don't think so.
Yeah. And so, Boothby, do you add the part about that strange house? Or do you just let Smythe tell the story and leave it unsaid?
He would just let Smythe tell the story.
So he listens to Smythe's story, and Connie and Hamish, you both have psychology, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead and roll your psychology for me.
that's a pass.
Oh, yeah. So find the roller. Okay, that is not a pass.
Not a pass.
I'm still
He
crazy.
puts up a good facade, and it's hard for you to read his expressions, Connie. Your grifts are built all around lip reading expressions, and well, this man's missing half a face. But Hamish, you are more in tune with body language, how people move, their mannerisms, the tone of voice, and it's obvious to you as he listens to Smythe's story, as he whistles in awe at the tale of the rattling sounds, the chanting, the call, echoed from all the buildings in the village green, that he's making his best attempt at presenting himself as if these things are not new to him, that he's taking it in stride, but you see him fidgeting, you see him occasionally look up and glance over at the shotgun resting at the wall, and you get the impression that what Smythe's telling him is perhaps making him more irritable, more on edge, almost as if it's confirming a fear lurking in his mind. Do you alert anyone to this, or do you just observe?
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. So, my story, he says, as Smythe's tale comes to an end. So, well, he puts down the screwed up bag of jerky and begins to shuffle nervously around the room, his wooden leg making his movements resemble the shuffled gait of a corpse as he begins to relate his tale. When I got discharged, I went back to my farm in Dunwich, and I thought I'd work that land until I died, but in recent years I was less and less happy there. 3 weeks ago, I threw everything I owned into me truck, and I started driving, looking for a new place to call home, and, well, that's when I remembered my daddy, Buford Harden. Well, he used to tell stories when he was a boy. He and his dad, my grandpappy, owned a farm in Innsmouth, and it was kind to them until the town took its turn and they had to leave, and I realized this farm, still there, and, well, I figured maybe this would be my home for a while. Lucky for me, I got a neighbor, a fellow by the name of Casper. He lives down the road, east of here. He saw my truck, When I arrived, he came over to see what was going on. My family's farm's been abandoned for decades, and Casper's a bit stir-crazy himself, you see, a bit lonely. He's a good man. He helped me get started. He helped me set up some crops, and so I decided to stay here and farm a little bit, enough to get on by, maybe sell in town. Casper warned me about going to Innsmouth, though. He told me about how they inbreed there. Well, I don't think that kind of thing is Christian. He peers over at Hamish. So I did my best to stay away from the place. So anything I harvest, I've been giving it to Casper, and he takes it to the town of Rowley out east, about an hour from here, sells it at market, and I got just enough to get by. Until last week. He stops his pacing, turns and faces you, his face suddenly darkened. I needed groceries, but since it was getting dark, I didn't want to go all the way to Rowley, with all the twists and turns and the potholes on the road. I could only drive it in the daylight. The road to Innsmouth is easier for a one-eyed man, so I shopped at the grocery store there. Goes by the name of First National. It's a chain or something. But by the time I got there, the sun was down, and on my way home, I got turned around. Before I knew it, I was at the harbor, and that's when it happened. I wasn't going more than 10 miles an hour when this dog comes running across the road. There's no time for me to hit the brakes, so I was too surprised to swerve out of the way, and the poor thing bounced off the front of my truck and onto the sidewalk. I pulled over and went back to see if I could help it. It was totally still. I thought I'd check to see if it had a tag so I could apologize to the owner. So I grabbed the poor thing by the leg and dragged it behind me to under a streetlight so I could read the tag, and its leg was kind of rubbery to the touch, but I figured it was just disease. Maybe it was rabid. I paid it no mind, and once I was underneath the streetlight, I turned around to look at it, and that's when I started screaming. It was the size and shape of a dog, but that's where the resemblance ended. Its entire body was green and rubbery, like a tadpole. Its legs ended in claws that had a webbing between them. Its head and face was what caused me to scream. Its eyes were larger than normal, and its mouth stretched from ear to ear, but aside from that, I tell you what, it was the face of a human being. It had ears like us and a nose like us. It even had hair on its head, cut nice and short. He takes a moment, his breathing picking up. I don't know if I can go on, he says. He looks around. I need a drink. He frowns. My bottle of whiskey. I got a bottle of whiskey. Where is it? Where's my whiskey? I can't find it. I can't find my...
Pardon. Get a hold of yourself, man. You're in, a safe place, surrounded by friends. We believe you.
Peers over at the others for reassurance, and his gaze seems to fixate specifically on Hamish. Hamish's cross visible there on the neck of his shirt, and well, it seems like Willie Harden's silently asking for comfort from the Lord. And I ain't seen things that they ain't Christian. I can't go on. I need the strength. I need some drink. I need the strength to go on.
Please, son, you're right. Just take a moment, right?
Head for me, please, and make a psychology or a psychoanalysis check.
The whiskey, it's in your car, the truck outside.
Fail. Oh, man of the cloth, I thought you have a parable or something to explain this, something to tell me it's gonna be okay. And Boothby speaks up. Your whiskey, it's in the car. Where you left it. He slaps a hand to the unburnt side of his face. Yeah, the car, I must have dropped it on the way back when... His eyes go wide and he falls silent, his mouth stammering. You're fine now. You're fine now, Connie. You're seeing his face burnt from the white phosphorus, but you can see that he's human, and he sort of staggers back towards the wall, slumps against the peeling wallpaper, and slides down, his mouth just open, stammering. Well, when I was coming back, that's when I dropped it. His words seem caught in his throat. His eyes wide with fear. We should retire for the night. He says, it's getting dark. Maybe if I sleep on it, maybe I go to my truck in the morning, get my whiskey, and I can tell you the rest. Okay?
Listen, son. What church are you with?
Was born and raised Catholic. I was baptized and confirmed and all, but I ain't been very godly these last few years.
Alright, well, maybe, if you need a drink, you need a drink, but maybe seek the Lord. He'll deliver you from fear, alright?
Me a charm check, please. Or a persuade check, you may choose.
Oh, that is a bad fail.
Bad fail. Would you like to push it?
I'd rather not push him over the edge.
Yeah. So, okay, which is your highest of those two skills?
Persuade.
Yeah, and what is your persuade value?
50.
50. So it is over base. So I will say it's a fail, but I will give you something for free, because you do have persuade above base, and there is something about Hamish, the way he carries himself. He seems to exude this air of calm, and so Willie Harden goes silent. His head sinks, his chin touching against his chest, and then he says, stumbled back to my truck, and my screams, they brought out some of the residents. As soon as they saw the thing, they ran over to it. I swear they was trying to help it. One of the women had come out, took it in her arms, and she started to cry when she realized it was dead. That's when they looked my way, and with them under the street light, I got a good look at them, and every single one of those some bitches had those pop eyes and those elongated mouths, just like the thing I'd hit. And the way they was looking at me, the way their eyes burned with hatred, it was murderous intent. And I drove back here as fast as I could. I got ready for a siege. I figured they'd come here and get me for killing one of their own. But as the days passed, I realized their plan. They're waiting for me to make a break for it so they can ambush me out in the marsh. That's why I wrote you. Safety in numbers, right? I mean, with you, Sergeant Smythe, and your friends with me, they won't dare do anything. One person disappearing wouldn't draw any attention to them and their town, but the whole group, with you here, I'm safer. Aren't I? He seems unsure of himself as his eyes meet yours, as his gaze passes over everyone in the room.
It seems like none of us are safe here. We should leave town immediately.
I agree.
Mhm.
Well, you got a head about you, Mr. Baxter, and see, I need the drink to think clearly, but you got your head screwed on. I think we should leave. You're all situated in Arkham, ain't you?
For the moment, yes.
You, Mr. Baxter, you're a detective. Do you provide protection services?
No, I don't provide protection services, but I'm sure we can sort something out. Look, this isn't the time to be discussing such things. We need to get out first, and we can worry about plans later.
He nods. But by the time he's finished his tale, you become aware of the fact that darkness is falling. There's only a shred of light outside. What remains of the sky is deep crimson, and the farmyard, the fields, the barn, and the vehicles have been swallowed up in purple twilight. We should leave.
Towns had lights back then. That shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, they do have lights.
Cars did, but given how foggy Innsmouth was.
Thing is, he raises a hand. I try never to travel at night because I got the poor eyesight, but also I remember in the war, the Huns would use the darkness to cloak their advances. They would set an ambush up for us down the trail. Before we knew what was going on, the Huns had set on us. And I don't want to give those Innsmouthers the same chance.
All we have to do is last the night, and we can get going in the morning.
I'll do what
You're
I
all
wanna-
mad. There's no reason why we should stay all night. So what if it's dark? So what if they set an ambush? If we wait all night, it'll have until tomorrow to prepare as well. The sooner we leave, the better.
And I don't mean no respect. You said you don't offer protection services, Mr. Baxter, and these Innsmouthers, when there's someone they don't like, they got ways of dealing with you, and these are things that, guns and bombs and weapons won't do nothing against.
You're telling me that they know you're here, they know you want to leave, they're going to set an ambush if we leave now. We'll be killed in our sleep if we stay here tonight. The entire town could descend upon us. This is madness.
But they ain't attacked over the last few days.
Then why would they attack us when we leave?
'Cause something, I feel it in my bones. I feel if we leave now at night, they'll know I'm trying to make a run for it. They'll know I'm trying to leg it. They'll see it's their last chance to deal with me.
Baxter, think, man. He doesn't want to go. I'm not.
If he doesn't want to go, then he doesn't get to go. I'm leaving tonight.
All right. And which vehicle, pray tell, are you taking?
Surely you can all come to some sense.
Look, I hate to stay here any longer than we have to, but I have to admit, if we leave in darkness, then we won't have nearly as much, preparedness for whatever might be waiting for us out there.
You said, says Willie, you said you dealt with this before, that you seen the same things I have, and you know that they creep and they lurk and they hide and they wait.
I brought materials to fortify this area, but we'll need to start setting them now.
You haven't
Or we can keep arguing.
You haven't passed many of the social checks to calm Harden down since you arrived. So he's not. Yeah.
That Hamish sort of gestures to pull him aside.
He shuffles over into Hamish's embrace. The Lord has wisdom for times like these.
That he does, lad. Have you got a Bible on you?
Yeah, I got a Bible in the bedroom.
Alright, I want you to go up there. Read yourself Psalm 34. Spend a little time on that. Take some deep breaths. Come on down. You'll be right as rain.
Takes one last look at you. And then he shuffles towards a door on the edge of the room and he says, "If Mr. Baxter says it's best to leave tonight, I suppose we'll leave tonight, but if y'all want to stay, I'll lay out some blankets in the bedroom. You can have the bedroom and I'll stay here in the living room. I got my shotgun and I'll stay alert just in case the Innsmouthers try something."
If you are willing to leave tonight, then I'm open to the possibility as well. How do the rest of you feel?
You know my
Baxter,
stance.
you steadied your stance. Boothby, stay
Look, the last
or go.
thing we should do is split up, I feel. Again, safety in numbers, so I feel like staying here for the night, using what we have to hunker down and staying in one place should give us more protection than going out in the middle of the night, in the darkness, in the marsh, in an area that we don't know much about, and trying to navigate our way out of here.
That is a fair point. We didn't do too well in the town, and we had a map.
Close call.
Connie,
Close call, and you had a map, and it was the daylight. Yeah, Connie.
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
As much as I don't want to stay here, I have to agree with the not wanting to split everyone up. So I suppose if everyone wants to stay, I'm not going anywhere.
Mr. Hamish, what are your thoughts? Or is it Pastor? Pastor?
Father is ideal, but look, I'm not inclined to be leaving a poor sod like him alone for the night.
Yes, but are we taking him and leaving tonight, or are we forting up here? Which would you prefer?
You
So we stay here.
Yeah, and as you peer around, you see for what it's worth that Willie Harden was not wrong when he said he was preparing for a siege. He's tipped over bookshelves, pressed them up against the windows. He's well and truly prepared to bunker down. "Alright," he says, "I could do with me whiskey before the night is out, but I remember I'm gonna trust in the Lord. Give me the strength overnight. So I've laid out some blankets for you in the bedroom. And I recommend you hitting the hay as soon as you can. We'll leave first thing in the morning. I'm used to staying up. It's just like when I was in the army. I sit here with my shotgun, and when I see the first morning light, I come and wake yous."
Oh, you'll not be alone. We'll be keeping watches if we go this route. And Smythe is going to go out and squint out the windows to the cars.
Spot hidden check for me, Smythe.
I could do with some younger eyes assisting me on this.
Sure, I'll look out there with you.
Success!
Fail.
Boothby and Smythe are peering out one of the boarded up windows out onto the farmyard, and by this point the farmyard is shrouded in darkness and shadow. You can just make out the outlines of the vehicles, but there is no movement, no signs of life, and from where you are, out on the edge of the marsh. It looks as if the house is the sole beacon of light in an endless sea of
Okay,
blackness.
It looks like the coast is clear. Mr. Boothby, Colin, let's move the cars in a bit closer, and let's take the ruddy lot of bear traps I brought and set them out on a perimeter, shall we? And let's do this quickly.
So, go ahead for me, Smythe, and make a... Well, we will say either a survival or track check, or a hard education check.
Well, tracking's what I do. I didn't know survival was a... that's where I did put a weird spot. I'm pretty sure tracking is better though. So
Tracking would be better.
Where is survival?
It's one of those weird ones where it's like...
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's got the underline.
It's a sub-skill, basically.
That's a 15 out of 40. So
Ooh.
Hard? Is that hard success?
Yeah. So,
Alright.
Boothby mainly carries the traps, getting them one by one out of the back of the truck, and then Smythe gives directions to Colin and Boothby, telling them where to put the traps, hiding them in the shadow of half-collapsed fence posts, in tufts of overgrown grass, places where someone wouldn't see them until it's too late. And you think after about 40 minutes or so, you've made a pretty good protective perimeter around the farmhouse. You've exhausted all of the traps, and someone would have to be very lucky or very cautious to not stumble into at least one of them if they were to encroach upon the house.
Alright then. We need to retire and douse the lights and wait. I'll be taking the first watch. Who wants second and who wants third? Miss Connie, I don't expect you to take a watch at all. You've had a rough time of it.
And for all his talk of staying up with his shotgun to stay alert for intruders, implying he was going to take the first watch, Willie Harden is slumped on the couch, snoring loudly. Looks like he'll be taking the last one.
Rest well, Hud. We've got you, man.
And then, night falls. You silently bid each other good night, good luck, and retire to the decrepit bedroom where Willie has laid threadbare blankets out on the floor. One cushion each. The cushions are as hard as Hessian sacks filled with sand. And yet somehow, sleep takes you. Your consciousness drips away. And Connie,
Yeah.
you are still temporarily insane. You toss and turn in your sleep, rocked by a nightmare. You're walking the streets of Innsmouth yet again, in the thick mist. No signs of where you are, no sign of time passing. The din of chanting voices once again audible somewhere off in the unseen distance. But this time the streets aren't empty. People shuffle alongside you, the streets bustling with activity. People wearing dark cloaks, tattered greying hoods, threadbare overalls, and fishermen's clothes. Some of them appear like normal humans, glimpsing you warily as you pass by, but the others have bulging eyes, fish-like lips, drooping frog-like cheeks, putrid leathery skin. Deep ones. As you move through the streets, the deep ones pay you no mind, but the humans, the regular passers-by, seem to notice you. Where they were merely skittish before, giving you sidelong glances, now they're almost openly fearful, opening their mouths in shock and horror, turning to run away from you as you approach them, running and hiding inside the ramshackle Innsmouth buildings. Passing by a store window, Connie, you catch your reflection in the glass. Your own features are distorted by the prominent symptoms of the dreaded Innsmouth look. Your own eyes bulging out of their sockets, your skin putrefying, turning grey. Noxious smelling slime running down your skin, shimmering like sweat. Go ahead and make a SAN check for me.
Good. Nope, that is another fail.
You lose 1d3 sanity. As your eyes flicker open, you sit bolt upright and scream. As you have never screamed before, sweat running down your skin. The first hints of morning. A heavy, grey haze slowly seeping into the room. And we will end this session there.